Hey everybody. Earlier in class today we talked about functions a lot. We looked at domains and ranges. We talked about whether a relationship is a function or not. We made some tables. We found some function rules. Tonight we're not going to have a lot of notes. We're just going to go over a couple examples of functions in the real world. Here's our first example. You might want to pause the video here to copy the problem down so when you look back at your notes you'll actually understand what you were talking about. Alright, ready? Since this is a word problem, we are going to solve it using the STAR process. Remember, the S in the STAR process stands for study the problem. And the first thing we want to do when we study the problem is to identify what we're trying to find. So there's a few things in this problem. One of them, it says write the amount in dollars you spend as a function of the number of tickets you buy. We want to identify the independent and dependent variables, and we want to identify the domain and range of the function. So 3 separate pieces to this problem. The second step of studying the problem tells us to box the important information. So I think I want to know how much the concert tickets cost. So I'm going to box that. I'll draw a little wraparound box around that information. And I also probably want to know how much or how many tickets I could buy. Right there. So we have our important information. The only information I think we could maybe cross out is this first part. We don't have to, but it's not really going to help us solve the problem once we have the information we boxed. So now we have to write the amount in dollars we spend as a function of the number of tickets you buy. If we're thinking about our STAR process right now, writing the amount as a function of the number of tickets you buy is basically the T step, right? Translating the problem into a math statement. So if I'm going to do that, I want to think about what the relationship is. I know that the concert tickets cost $15 each. So each ticket I buy is going to increase the cost by $15. So I can write my function as y equals 15x, because whatever the number of tickets I buy is, we're going to multiply that by 15 to find the cost. Now we have to find the independent and dependent variables. So I'm going to get set up for that. Now, when I'm trying to decide which is which, the independent or the dependent, I think the dependent variable is the easiest to identify because that's the one that depends on the other variable. And in this case, y depends on whatever x is. We can't know y until we know the number of tickets. So y is the dependent variable, and that represents the total cost, right? And the total cost depends on x, which is the number of tickets. Now, to identify the domain and range is a little tricky here. We can start by looking at this piece of information, which I think is really going to come in handy. The fact that we can buy up to 6 tickets, because that's telling me the possible values for my x variable. So my domain here, remember, a domain is a set of numbers that are the possible values for the inputs, and we put them inside these curly brackets. So my domain could be 0 tickets. I could choose to buy 0, or I could buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 tickets. Right? Now my range, I can't tell my range really from reading this problem, but I can do a little bit of math to figure it out. I know if I put 0 in as my input, my output will also be 0. 15 times 0 is 0. If my input is 1, my output is 15. If my input is 2, my output is 30. If my input is 3, my output is 45. 15 times 3. 15 times 4 is 60. 15 times 5 is 75. And if my input is 6, my output is 15 times 6, which is 90, right? So we see that each input here has only one output. 0 goes to 0, 1 always goes to 15, 2 always goes to 30, and so on. So we see that this is a function. We've got our 3 parts of the problem all answered. We have the rule, we have the independent and dependent variables, and we have the domain and range. I know I told you we were going to do a couple examples, but I think if you took really good notes on this one, I think that should be enough to get the hang of what we're doing. At least enough to be able to apply it tomorrow when we work on some more of these complex real-world tasks in class. So make sure you finish up your notes, submit it through Canvas, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a good rest of the night.